everyone, welcome to the Thrive Leadership Forum. My name is Hazel Evans. I am the founder of Highland Valley Digital and the co-founder of the Napa Global Institute. My next speaker today is a rare kind of innovator, someone who seamlessly blends deep technical expertise with creative vision and cultural impact. Douglas Clarke is a media technologist, creative producer, and thought leader who has spent more than 25 years designing the future of how we create, deliver, and experience content. His work spans cinema, streaming, immersive media, and AI-powered workflows. But most recently, Doug has captured audiences with Soulmate, a powerful original play that debuted in Los Angeles early this year and quickly earned an extended off-Broadway run in New York City. The story has been complemented with the Soulmate podcast series, continuing the conversation around purpose, connection, and the human condition across platforms. Doug's career includes leading roles where he co-led innovation strategy for next-gen media formats like DTS and IMAX Enhanced, integrating cutting-edge technologies like immersive audio, HDR, and AI into studio and consumer ecosystems. He's consulted for top-tier studios, tech vendors, device manufacturers, always focusing on optimizing workflows while elevating the viewing experience. What sets Doug apart is his belief that storytelling, systems design, and leadership are all acts of intentional creation, capable of shaping not just products, but culture itself. Today, Doug and I are going to talk about the bold question and our conversation of how do we create culture by design, building the future through values-driven leadership. In an age where technology is moving faster than ever, Doug challenges us all to lead with clarity, integrity, and purpose, designing the kind of culture we actually want to live in and work in. Whether through code or on stage, Doug is showing us that leadership starts not with tools, but with the values we choose to champion. Please join me in welcoming Doug Clarke to the stage.
Oh, thank you, Hazel. I'm very happy to be here today.
Thanks, Doug. Tell us a little bit about your story, a little bit about who is Doug and how did you get to where you are today and really blending technology and creation?
Well, I think that it all started when I was, for most of us as a child. I felt that I was a very creative kid, but I couldn't really draw. And so therefore, I didn't consider myself an artist because back then I felt like, you had to be able to draw to be an artist. And so instead of going that route, I seemed to excel at mathematics and physics, and I really enjoyed that. But I did find a college program that offered very advanced courses and with a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics, physics, and engineering, computer engineering. But the direction of the degree was towards application in music technologies, which was really fascinating. And that way I was able to blend what my passion really was, which was the art in music and media, and enhance that with the actual technology that can bring those things forward into the world at scale.
That's amazing. I want to touch a little bit on your leadership style and really thinking about intentional leadership and that cultural engagement. How do you bring that to your leadership teams and where did you learn that? Because it's not born, it's obviously learned. How and where did that come about for you?
It came about very holistically and organically for me. As you said, it's not something that is inherent, especially in something like engineering and technology practices in companies, where things get very dry around objectives, product objectives, technology objectives. What I learned was that there were moments, especially when the engineering and kind of the technical aspects met business, especially when we're talking about very fast-moving initiatives, such as in startups. I was involved in a lot of startups kind of coming up in my career, where integrity of what it is that you were kind of shopping out there when whether you were talking to investors or potential clients, became very critical because when you're on the edge of technology development, there is a little bit of let's say like overpromising at times, or like kind of painting a vision that you may not have yet achieved because you need that bit of money to inject to do so. When I was coming up in that environment, I'd find myself sometimes at odds personally, because in my own life, my own personal life, I found it very important to uphold your integrity in your dealings with other people, if nothing less than to be able to kind of relax into who you are authentically and not worry about kind of like who you've told what to in order to maintain whatever image that you were trying to uphold. And so when I would face that in the context of selling a technology or creating a technology, what I found was that I could choose to actually, in the face of maybe an environment where some things were being like overpromised or inflated in any way, if I held true to what I felt was a very strong integrity about what it is that I was creating, it would breed a trust that would surpass any benefit of overpromising would bring. And then I'd start establishing these very long-lasting, deep, trusted relationships with investors, with clients, that then reinforce that value.
That is so important. Integrity and trust.
Mhm.
The two of the biggest things that everyone needs to lead with and support and enable. I want you to tell me the story about how that very purpose helped you create a team and a play that would be something completely different to the technology creativity that you've done and bring another vision that you had to life.
Yeah, it all started about a year ago with the play, where I had worked for a company called Xperi. That's where I mostly developed my technologies for DTS and IMAX Enhanced, as you had mentioned. They had been going very different directions. By the time I left about a year ago, I was leading technical strategy across the whole company. That included their TiVo brands, HD radio brands, things like that. And what I had left at that moment with was feeling a responsibility for an entire company, meaning that I was helping to drive the decisions that were building the path towards future innovation, near term, medium term, long term. And in doing so, I had really reached out and got to know leaders across groups across the entire company, and understanding that everyone was there of their own volition, of their own free will, because they believed in their work, they believed in doing something greater. I felt that I had a responsibility to each of those people to do my best to preserve their intention the best I could, and then create kind of like policy and strategy that reflected that, because I felt that with that, the integrity of that, we would have the best chance of succeeding going forward. So what happened was that when I left that about a year ago, I had decided to completely pivot, go into something purely creative, because I had already been kind of dabbling in theater arts for about a year at that point, doing mostly music and acting, and create my very own play, which is called Soulmate. And in doing so, did become a leader, as in the writer, the director, the creator of the music. But in a kind of original telling of a very original and complex layered story that involved a lot of vulnerability, layers of comedy, mysticism, tragedy, and tell it in the only way I knew how it would be effective, which is a very honest, through a very honest lens. And so what I felt was that as I brought people on board to help me with that and build my team, not only of actors, but of fellow advisors, business people, producers, it was very important to hear everyone's own story about how they related to the story of the play itself. There's so many human elements to it that I found that people were just drawn to it based on that. And when I'd heard in their reflection of how they felt hearing the story, I felt that same respect that would honor what they saw in the story, to help me to decide how to lead best, meaning that if I can lead and have this story have most integrity, but then honor and respect everybody's own piece of themselves that they were contributing to it, then we would have the most powerful product going forward in the form of the play.
That was amazing. It was a great play. I want to explore a little bit about leadership differences between Los Angeles and New York. Your
Mm-hmm.
play started in New York, and sorry, it started in Los Angeles and it went to New York as Off-Broadway. And you had somewhat different experiences, I understand, in LA to what you had in New York. How did that translate to really thinking about the culture of the people, the play, the cast, because they were slightly different? How did that challenge you as a leader? And how did you solve for that and think through that while maintaining trust, integrity amidst all of the, pardon the pun, drama?
Yes, indeed. Well, I would say that yes, in California and in LA especially, it is much more because, in a way, theater arts are not as taken as seriously, I'd say, in Los Angeles. There are a lot of actors here and a lot of creative talents, of course, but most of that is towards the direction of TV and film. And
Mm.
so, theater is a place where you can really experiment hard here in LA and play and just get wildly creative. And I am very happy that that's where Soulmate started because there were a lot of very experimental and vulnerable elements that I was able to push here. And then I was able to also kind of get a much easier buy-in, meaning that even the audiences themselves would show up with a very open mind, be very open to anything that they would be receiving, and then be able to more immediately reflect what they were feeling, meaning that in Los Angeles, as audiences left, I mean, I would get a whole variety of emotions that were being expressed. Sometimes people coming out of the play with like tears in their eyes, or like laughter in their on their face, and want to share that experience with a lot of enthusiasm. Then when I went to New York, there was this layer of legacy there of sophistication. I mean, suddenly I was off Broadway. I was competing with big established plays that had been there for a very long time. I had auditions that had 10 times, literally 10 times the number of people showing up, and showing up with this professionalism that was just where it became very difficult to even say, like, okay, who do I even choose? I mean, everyone, all these different actors are so incredible. And what happened there was it became a different challenge. And that's something that we really documented in the Soulmate podcast, which I think you mentioned. We started that podcast just before leaving for New York. And so there's 10 episodes and we were kind of filming and putting them out throughout. And a lot of the discussion there is me and my team that came from LA, just reflecting on like the drastic differences that we were feeling in New York City. And what that legacy brought and that expectation brought was a little bit more of an expectation from an audience, whereas instead of just being very open and embracing what we were putting out there, there was a little bit of a range of resistance at times, surprise, and what that meant for me as someone who not only is a director of the play, but who is very interactive, we decided to, as we noticed right away that audiences reacting differently, we decided to put forward a talkback series. So every other performance, we'd end up having a talkback where basically immediately upon the close, the close of the play, I would get up with a microphone, bring the cast on stage, and just start talking directly to the audience. Part of my doing that was because I felt like there was this hesitancy to open up. Like the play was still bringing feelings out in the audience, but they were not as ready to explore that. And what would happen is, in the context of those talkbacks, we would get this slow opening because I mean, I have this thing where the play is already so vulnerable. It's like my heart's already open, right? And so it's like I really didn't have any shyness around just going right into the taboo subjects that the play brought forward. And what happened was, is I felt like the room would slowly, it would almost slowly turn into this group therapy kind of feel session where like people would slowly start to share things like hesitantly, and then by the end of the discussion, just we'd just be getting very deep into subjects around relationships, communication, consent. It was really beautiful, but it was we had to almost overcome this legacy feeling that theater in New York imposed upon us, and had to break through in our own way.
Mm. Did you have, on top of these different sort of cultural challenges, did you have different challenges in New York that sort of would be curveballs versus Los Angeles that you had to pivot quickly? And if you're comfortable sharing, what were they and how did you pivot?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that happened is that, so as I may have mentioned, the play has a lot of adult themes to it. And there is a bit of nudity in the play, which was really something that in Los Angeles, as I said, we could play with. And I injected into the play to really deepen the meaning and especially the vulnerability of the characters involved. It's the kind of play that has a very cathartic nexus point and then a very cathartic ending, which plays with tragedy, but in a way where I was exposing very much my own experience, mostly having to do with a breakup, a very serious breakup I had in my life just before writing the play. And so the nudity for me, much like a lot of artistic devices like that, was not about being gratuitous or sexy or anything, but really about stripping down to the most vulnerable selves of the players on stage. And so that was the intention. It was really coming across. And then halfway through, so right before we started our extension, the theater that we were involved in New York came down from the board that they did not want nudity on their stage. There wasn't really a good reason why, and I did have a very good exchange with the chairman of the board for the theater, and she was really understanding of the intention, but they just decided that it was coming out in the press that there was nudity, it was getting a kind of attention that they thought was detrimental, and then they just didn't allow it. That was very difficult for me to accept as the writer director and as someone who had experienced so much I don't know, opening from the audience based on that vulnerability that we were exhibiting. So we had to pivot quickly. And one of the things that we did was we have this incredible part of our team. Her name is Giselle, and she's part of our PR team, but also did a lot for marketing and other support, merchandise, and things like that. She immediately reached out to for example, like different lingerie shops that were local to New York City, and very quickly got one on board called We Fit Lingerie, and they're like kind of a bespoke, showroom where you go and you get fitted for bespoke lingerie. And they stepped in, and we were able to forge a partnership that not only furnished us with a free set of really beautiful lingerie that we could use instead of nudity, which really was able to kind of extend the elegance of what it is that we are pursuing, but then create co-marketing opportunities, for example, where their team came and saw the play. They were able to talk to their customers about it. We were able to talk to, put their credits in the program and hand their cards out after the program. And really what it ended up doing was, instead of it being just a simple kind of like cooperation or co-marketing, it became almost like a growth of the culture of what it is that we were trying to do together. We really felt like we were exhibiting the same values that we had around, in this case, sexuality, body positivity, things like that. And it became something that where the sum of the two parts was greater than each of what we could have each contributed in that respect. And so that was really kind of a beautiful resolution to what started as an extremely difficult challenge and pivot for me.
Congratulations. What a great outcome and a new partnership and growth.
Mhm.
How did you help your team through that? So you expressed obviously how you felt a little bit about the
Yeah.
changes, but the team had come together, your cast had come together with the same belief. They were living, breathing this show, they were delivering it regularly. How did you help them through how did you help them understand what the board was telling you and how you could pivot and still carry the story, but still be in a different sort of look and feel to the audience? How did you navigate that with them?
Yeah, I think it wasn't so difficult to do that around this particular issue, mostly because what we had cultivated with the cast from the get-go, which was really beautiful because everybody in the cast came from a very different background. We had a multicultural cast. We had a cast that was of completely different gender and sexual orientation persuasions, which was really important actually to the story. In that, I really like to create a world where that diversity in thought and feeling contributes to create a much greater the whole than any of the individual parts. And so already we had a very holistic, almost a philosophy that we all contributed to. It's like, well, we all know what the intention is behind doing this play. Everyone, upon reading the script, really started embracing what the story was, embracing their character, embracing how they related to their character and other characters. And then we started embracing each other kind of like in our own culture that we were bringing through whatever background that we were coming from. Whether it was that some of the cast have been involved in sex work before, that some of the cast have been involved in or were involved in polyamorous relationships, things like that. And so we had so much intention and culture already kind of cultivated within what we were doing. What was nice about that was that it didn't, little issues like facing some censorship, it didn't completely throw off or eclipse what we were there to do overall. It really just reinforced in all of us the purpose and what we were doing there. And that, yes, much like when you are bringing your authentic self, whoever you are, you're going to face misunderstanding. You're going to face adversity. You're going to face, you know, really feeling like though you're putting your heart out there in a very vulnerable space, that others may misinterpret what that means. And so I think that we benefited from the strength that we had cultivated just putting the play together, just deciding to work together in our audience talkbacks, where every night everybody got to bring what they felt and how they related to each other. I mean, even some of our cast are in very traditional relationships and kind of like more cultural orientations, but they felt just as heard as those who were more, in alternative situations. And so what I was very happy to see was that we had strength in the integrity of what we had already put together. And that allowed us to almost feel more conviction in the face of resistance as to what we were doing, and deliver something even stronger.
That's really great. And it really talks to the conscious setup of a psychological and cultural safe space set up by you at the outset, intentionally to bring that diverse perspective together where people felt safe during change and transformation and things that maybe hadn't been planned. If you were to be in a situation, if you could imagine your situation where maybe you had not set up that safety um, or safe place for your team when you started your company, if you were in the middle of a company and found yourself in a need to change, what might you do to help bring people to that level of intentional um, collaboration with their team, intentional trust, intentional integrity, and building that culture for success? What might you recommend?
Yeah, I think it all has to start with yourself. If you can't bring your full integrity, your full authenticity, and really like trust those around you, those who are supporting you and your team as a leader, with your own heart, your own intention, and be fully present with that, then you can't really expect anybody to come along with you for that ride. I learned that as I came up in these startups. What I would do is I would work so hard, and I'd always inject some creative piece of of what I was doing as well. So, for example, I worked for a company, THX, for a number of years. It used to be part of Lucasfilm. While there, I was creating an entirely new technology that was bringing metadata along with content in order to inform devices downstream how to best configure themselves to present that content so you could get the full integrity of the art. In doing that, I was so invested that I needed a lot of, like, for example, demo material. And so I would spend the weekends writing music, filming my own pieces, so that I can just make sure that I presented exactly what it was that I wanted to demonstrate, that flex the technology. But in order to do that, it unwittingly, meaning I didn't know I was doing it, but I was really opening up my own heart quite a bit and expressing a lot of things artistically to pair with the technology to bring that across. And so, though I wasn't aware of it at the time, I was very present in the way that I was leading this product with my whole being. And that's where I was faced with in situations where the integrity of the business side or whatever was challenged. I found myself, it's like, I'm already all in. My heart's already on the line here. It's like, I'm not going to compromise any of that because I'm already here. It's like, where else would I go from there? And I started challenging the rest of my team through example, as to having integrity in what we were presenting. That infected actually the whole company. I remember that the president of the company at the time, he pulled me into his office and he said, first of all, he said, "You're an artist," which I had never heard before. That was actually the first time I'd heard that someone called me an artist, someone with authority. But then he also said, and you're really making some new headway as far as our relationships with our vendors, our clients go, because they are feeling this integrity that you're projecting, and they're trusting us with a lot more business, and it's because of you. And so that was my first experience with that. So going forward, anytime I'm in a position where I do have, where actually it doesn't matter if I have authority or leadership, if I'm there, if I'm present, then it's going to be my priority to be fully there, fully vulnerable as much as I can, trust those that I'm working with, and demonstrate that way of being. And then only in that way can others, I expect that of others. Now, whether they're able to kind of come to the table, they do have to feel safe. As a single person, sometimes in an organization, it's hard to do that if there's other parts of the organization that don't feel safe. But in the situation like Soulmate, where I got to be the leader, the CEO, and all of that, it was a gift to be able to create that safe space. It was one of my objectives. I knew that I would not even begin to achieve the artistry of what I wanted to without doing that. So that became a priority right away. And I'd say to my cast often, and other parts of my team, it's like, we're creating the world that we want to live in. We have a chance. This is our domain to do that. And so that's what gave everyone the ability to be vulnerable and put forward their heart as well. And it really was effective in that way. I'm so happy about it.
I'm so glad that it turned out the way it did for your team and for you, because being vulnerable is being brave and courageous. It's a hard thing for many leaders to do and offer. It can be seen by sometimes as a weakness to show vulnerability, but you are living proof that when you do show that others do the same, and together you all grow. As we think about what's next for Soulmate, it sounds like an amazing play. It sounds like something people want to hear. Lots of storylines, lots of different things. You have now come back to California and it's about to start another run and potentially have some more storylines and potentially an advanced cast. I really want to sort of go back to where we started with technology and creativity without telling anyone anything special about Soulmate or what's about to happen. How are you blending technology, and what might Soulmate look like in its next iteration? And maybe why should people keep an eye out for it to come and maybe see the show?
Yeah. Well, we're working with a space up in Berkeley called Seal Space. We've been talking to them quite a bit and scoping out some things. And what's really nice about that space is that it is a technology center, meaning that it is a studio where they are constantly on the cutting edge. Up in the San Francisco Bay Area, as a lot of things are, with things like, in their case, 8K projection mapping. They have like a lighting system within a 3D lighting system within the space that we can utilize to, in this case, we have these mystical elements of the play, and so to bring that into these new ways of experiencing visuals, of experiencing audio. Those are some of the ways that we are looking to expand, that I'm very excited about. Also, we want to expand in a way where we're making it much more experiential. A big difference actually between Los Angeles and New York, for example, was that in Los Angeles, we were doing little black box theater. It felt a little more intimate. In New York, we went much more traditional off-Broadway stage, where the stage was elevated, there was the stage and the audience. Now, I did need to push the boundaries of that because I do love the interaction of the audience. So I did bring part of Soulmate in New York into the audience at different times, which really surprise people there for sure. But what I really look forward to going forward is making it a much more immersive experience where the actors and the characters are from the get-go, even before the show, interacting with the audience, where an audience maybe plays their own part in the production. And so there's so many elements and aspects that I want to keep growing and exploring with that. And I can't wait to see what happens next.
I am so excited to see what happens next. If people want to chat to you about technology, about audiovisual, about Soulmate Creative or otherwise, what is the best way for them to reach out to you, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, there's a website, soulmateofficial.com, that kind of has a lot of materials and bios and a link to the podcast and some merchandise, things like that. But you could reach me there, and my email link is there. It's just Douglas@soulmateofficial.com is my email address. But if you're more interested in technology, in the consulting that I do for technology, my LinkedIn is always good. It's the linkedin.com/Douglas A. Clarke, Clarke. My middle initial is A. I had to put it in there because someone already had a Douglas Clarke. That's a great way to get in touch with me. I also should mention that I've been doing a lot of writing recently. I have a book coming out with She Rises Studios, an anthology book that I've contributed to chapter 2 called Mindset Mastery. In that, I talk a lot about the mindset that I had to have going into this challenge of doing an off-Broadway play. In there, I go into detail about these aspects of integrity, in thinking deeper, and vulnerability and connecting. And so that's a great way to explore further in what we're talking about here. And then there's a couple more articles and things coming out in publication soon that support that as well.
Thank you, Doug. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm sure you have inspired so many people, not only to blend technology and creativity, but to follow their dreams and show that vulnerability and build that culture with intent for the future. So thank you very, very much for sharing with us. I appreciate you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Hazel. It's been a pleasure as well.